So hopefully this is actually recording, and the technology will all come through for us. But I just started the recording right now. A couple things I want to introduce Chip, also tell you a little bit about the Las Vegas operation, and to put everything into context, because for many of you, some of you managers, you've only been with us for just a matter of months, and then some of your operations are maybe no more than a couple years old compared to Indianapolis, where we've been open since 2000, and Las Vegas since 2003. So the maturity of the market certainly comes into play for a lot of this. A lot of what we're talking about with Chip today will be things that some of you will aspire to grow to, and I think that's super valuable. I ended up going with this route, or we ended up going with this route on the manager call, and I know you guys are doing some stuff on your own. That's awesome. We have 20-some people on the call here today, and to try to cover a topic and everyone get a chance to kind of say their piece, it's really difficult to jump around and have 20-some people and really get anything accomplished on that. So the way we're going to go at it, at least at first, is to take a guest or maybe two guests and try to go through some relevant information that we're all struggling with, or we're all challenged by, or things we're all having success with. Share those successes, and also share, the way we're trying to solve these problems that we all face. Like I said, the Vegas operation, pretty mature. We just moved recently into a nicer office, a bigger office. Chip's been with us, I believe, since 2005. Is that correct, Chip?
Yep.
And so 12-some years in the game here. He came to us with experience in real estate. As I had mentioned in one of the emails, and you may have already known, he was a business planning coach with the Mike Ferry Group. That's certainly relevant to what we're trying to accomplish. Chip, I kind of want to jump right into some of the stuff that people were asking about, and the new office, and I want to talk about how, just to set the stage, one of the things that's really been a little bit of a watershed for us and different than what we've ever done in anywhere else is kind of the way the office is set up. When people walk into the main part of the office, there are side offices, but there's a big open area. Chip had this idea to have a big table where people could sit around and a culture could be formed, and it's actually working. There's always 4 to 6 people at the table. Perhaps most importantly, Chip himself, Justin, who works with Chip in management in Las Vegas, Justin Wase, he's also at the table, so that's a big part of it. But one of the questions Chris wanted me to bring up, and I'll jump right into some of the questions here, is how have you maintained consistency with call night? And then also, and I think these kind of go hand to hand, Las Vegas has consistently been 80% plus typically on the hot list calls. What about the office? What about the quote-unquote table? What about the culture you've kind of created out there has helped with the call night consistency and the hot list focus?
The first question, which is what helps with call night consistency, is food. Food. I'm sorry, I wish I could go into a whole lot of great details about how powerful our training is, but because of food. And it was Carrie Holly that gave me this advice where I started, because I got to tell you, I was really scared. Everybody was looking at this with skepticism, even I was, because we'd never tried anything like this. Our offices are run just like every real estate office in America usually is. People come here to go into an office, make their calls, do their work, and then they come out and talk to us when they have a problem. Usually an 11th hour problem where things are falling apart. And that's where Brett jumps in and is able to be broker and helper. They're asking for tactical advice from one of the agents that happened to be right there at the time, or me, or Justin, and they would get the advice one person had to give. But the thing that was missing, and it would happen in these moments, like after a sales meeting, or when it just so happened on a day there'd be 5 or 6 agents in, and we would draw everybody into a conversation. I would literally go from office to office and say, "We got this problem. What do you do with it?" And then if they had something interesting to say, I'd actually say, "Hey, come over here real quick and let's talk about it." And it was really great. All of us have had an experience of collaboration before. The problem is that in real estate, everything's organized so that you're doing it all by yourself. And that really, what the real effect was that it really worked against us with what our business model was at the time. We'll get into more of that later, but basically, if you're stuck in that, my business model, my value prop is we provide leads, then there's a whole trapdoor to how people assess you if you're just all about the leads. And I could see that when we had people sitting in a group talking about those things, some really cool stuff happened. Most importantly, they weren't relying on Brett or myself or Justin for the answer. They were asking the practitioners, and they were getting really good answers. So with new people, it was our original goal, was that with new people, we would indoctrinate them into kind of a sales floor bullpen environment, not where they were separated in a bullpen, but where they were forced to sit in a group. And if they were brand new, that way you could learn by everybody that was walking in and out of the office, and you could also learn from each other. And it would give the management the best opportunity to have an effect, not in a lecture format, but at the moment that they were having a problem or at the moment that they had a success. And so it was a great idea, but it was met with skepticism by everybody. The idea of working on a big table, it's noisy, I can't get work done there, that's not the way I work, or just the whole concept of why would I come there when I do my own stuff at home? I make my calls at home, I like where I work, I have my things set up. And it took some seeing to believing, because having a group of people that are helping each other doesn't come about because I had a meeting or I said, let's all show up. Food brings people, good food. And it started by us, just putting together and started making food, but it ended up with everybody doing a potluck and bringing their own little thing that's special. And I'm not kidding you. The nights that we have our best food, we have 18, 25 people in here. And it started because of the word of mouth, and not just because of the food, obviously, because it was people get together. Once agents get together with people that are doing exactly what they're doing, and they actually hear and pick up good stuff, like coming there with my $240,000 buyer and I can't find a place with a pool for, people start throwing you ideas. They start throwing you ideas because they've got the same problem. And so it doesn't work in a chat room, and it doesn't work, at least in here, at least with my group of agents, or at least this culture. Getting people to identify on a Facebook page or doing any of this stuff we were running aground over and over, but sitting in one place, working together, great stuff happens. Great stuff happens.
Are you at a zoo? Are you at a zoo right now?
Office. That is not my office.
Okay,
I'm hearing it for the first time through the earphones.
I don't know who has
somebody's got a parakeet.
Well, okay.
Well,
that was great, Chip. How about talk a little bit about the hot list? And you guys really have done better than anybody at maintaining consistently ever since we rolled this out, IMS 2.0 last year. People continually staying on top of the hot list, and it's paying off. I mean, Vegas's conversion of our leads is as good as ever, and particularly relative to the rest of the country. There
are things we do, but Brett prints out a list of those people that are below, and we'll cut it in half and get in touch with them and say what's going on if we haven't seen them. But more importantly, we're just grabbing them when they're walking through. That culture thing, as silly as it sounds, but if there's a place where I'm sitting every day in the middle that they got to walk past, and Justin, who's one of our top 3 agents, is sitting and any question could be answered, and Brett's literally just right in an office at the top of that room where you can get all your questions answered in one place, it becomes a place where people come to get their questions answered. And in that moment, you can have conversations about anything. Because you don't have to sit down and have a one-on-one meeting. You can literally just say, wow, I saw you went from 75 to 84% on that. That's awesome. What did you do different? And while they're talking about what they did different, some people that don't have a high score are listening. Even though they may not sound like they're listening, they don't ask questions. They're now in an environment where this is being seen and acknowledged. And so that is the only thing I think that we can take credit for. I would say the big reason why is because the visibility that IMS 2.0, the number one reason is because people can see what they've done. In the past, we had databases with leads in it, and we had things that we had done, but it was hidden. We could say, I worked really hard last night, and not pull up our number and see we only made 3 contacts. Because one of those 3 calls was me doing a lot of work for one of the clients, and it seemed like a hard amount of work to me. But once people started to recognize that they were not actually doing this stuff that they thought they were, they self-police. There's a group of them that don't. I wish I could say that the bottom end of our production, the people on our roster that were productive, that by doing this, it made them better agents. I don't think it made anybody much better agent. It just got them more presentations. And that story from October of last year until January of this year was strong. A lot of people were showing up with December business and January business, and they had never done it before. So that word on the street from IMS 2.0 being, the rollout that you guys did coming out here, the emphasis that we put on it in those weeks after, we got lucky. It really caught, and without that culture, without a culture of people sitting around and watching other people actually worry about this, I'm not sure on one-on-one, left to their own intentions, that the same message would have gotten through.
Well, that segues for me kind of into the focus of recruiting that a number of people asked several different questions about. Rob Williams in Raleigh, Tracy Majeski in Charleston asked about recruiting established agents, and John Allen in Atlanta asked about the value proposition for potential recruits. And I want to kind of take that value proposition question and more specify the question of value proposition for recruits above and beyond just our leads, which for all of us that are recruiting out there, and when we're sitting down with a potential recruit, certainly leads has been a big part of the conversation. As we continue to mature and evolve and grow, and as our agents who have been with us for over time, their business matures, leads become a smaller part. I think recruiting established agents and higher producing agents, a lot of it does come in value proposition above and beyond leads. So, whether it's the table and the culture and everything that you just discussed, how do you view your value proposition above and beyond just the leads today relative to maybe where it was in the past?
Well, I want to start by saying I don't recruit experienced agents that are high producing, and it's not because I don't want them. I used to spend a lot of time trying to think of ways to do it. It was always my big dream. I thought when I was trying to build a core for the years in the past, we're always kind of, okay, I got a good one. I got somebody I think will produce a deal a month. Now I've got 2 of those people. Now I've got 4. Now I've got this core of 10. Okay, I remember when we got to 10 people that we could count on a deal a month from, and thinking, okay, this is good. Now I've got these people. But in the beginning, you're just trying to get the one. You're not thinking about the highest producing agent in the country or in the city. You're just thinking about somebody who would actually listen to what we have to say, because we have a ton of best practice experience, particularly in our lead class. I mean, nobody that I'm competing against, Keller Williams, any of the 100% offices, even the boutique offices here in town that really are a competition for agents for me, they're not talking about how to convert Zillow leads, Realtor.com leads, because that's not part of the business model. Maybe C21 will become that now. The guy from Zillow went over to be CEO there. Maybe they're going to be we'll start seeing that. But my value prop in this market just can't, it could be anything besides we provide leads. Because that is the thing people classified me for 9 years, 100%. When I would ask people how they heard about us, if it was from our marketing, we usually started the marketing with the sentence, we provide leads. And so the questions were all surrounding how many leads they get and the quality. And especially once they started work. See, that was the thing that kept, I didn't see this thing I thought was my big advantage was actually killing me. And it was. Now that I look back on it, I'll never go back. But I'm not just never go back from where I stand now. I'm looking to try to open sometime in the future, and it may be a dream, but I don't think it is, of opening another market, opening in Reno. We'll see. But I know when I go and try and start there, I'll be sitting in the spot of anybody that's starting up a brand again in a market where they don't exist, and I will not be selling that we provide leads is the way I recruit. I can't. Because of what happens.
What will you be selling?
Well, more importantly, I think it's important to just talk about why. Why not leads? Because they are valuable. But the reason why it's just death is because when they evaluate you as a we provide leads company, they're evaluating based on their impression of what the leads are. And they don't have our training. They do not understand what the real potential is of a marketing internet buyer lead. They think a lead's like anything that they would get that turns into an appointment. So they're using stuff like the human stuff, not even realtor stuff, like how soon are they buying? That's the big one here. Like, are they buying right now? Because most people in Vegas aren't buying right now. If that's a person that's, even if they're buying a $50,000 property, if they're here right now, okay, maybe I'll meet them. That has a lot of value. But if they're anything out, and out for here, there's a lot of our leads that are coming in, aren't buying for the next 3 or 6 months, not buying for a year, have an indeterminate timeline. That's one way they would judge our leads as bad and would invalidate our value proposition completely. The second one was, what price point? Were you generating stuff that was at a price point above or at or above the median price in the market, so that it was, I didn't get into multiple offers and get killed trying to find a house. And then the last one is, did you have cash or were you pre-qualified? If you were cash pre-qualified and you have a price point that's at a good price point and you're buying right now, well, you're a good lead. You give me a bunch of those, I think your model's awesome. I think your value prop's really high, but that just doesn't exist. So the real thing we have as a value prop is not providing internet leads. It's we know how to convert internet leads. We do. We have a system that's completely tailor-made for it that none of our competitors have. They all have CRM. They don't have CRM that are designed to convert internet leads. We do. And they certainly don't have 10 years of experience, over 10 years of experience, of poking a hole in how you're going to get not just short conversion, but long conversion from it. Now, granted, we still kind of suck at it. I mean, really, we do. We're not great. But I tell you right now, if you're talking about going into a Realty One office or a RE/MAX office, buying your Zillow leads and figuring this out, you better be dynamic. And in which case, you didn't need my help anyway. You are the person that will figure it all out by yourself. But most people have no clue what they're going to do because it isn't a referral or a sign call. It isn't a door knock where I get to talk to them. It's a long-term relationship with a speed dating quotient of 30 seconds to 2 minutes where I've got to make a good impression and find out what I need to do. And we can teach that. And I can also show that we have people that are practitioners of it and are making money from doing it. That is a good value prop. But it's not the only one. I mean, every one of these managers, and myself included, Brett sitting in the office over there as a broker, we all have real estate experience, so we know how to do all sorts of stuff, but what I can't compete on is leads. Because once I do, I'm dead.
Well, what I was going to ask you about there, as it relates to the established agents that a couple of people have asked about, and you went on to say that, you know, right now you're not recruiting established agents. In fact, just to make sure everybody's aware, Chip, Justin, and Brett in Las Vegas have been focusing on a real estate school where we have a good relationship and we're getting in front of a lot of new licensees, and it's been very much a specific focus of hiring newer licensees. We're doing that in a few different markets, but obviously that's not going to work for everybody. When you're more of a one-man type show or you don't have the type of size and support that they do out there, new licensees are a challenge. They're a lot of work. Some of them get over the hump, some of them don't. And so what I can say, and more to come on this, certainly any specific managers out there that want to talk about this sooner than later, we can. But obviously you've seen what Chris has sent out about the recruiting IMS that we are rolling out. A couple of you already have seen it. Chris and I have actually used it ourselves with limited time, but with that limited time, great success. And it's definitely a tool that's going to help us get in front of people and convert recruiting prospects into new hires the same way our agents have the opportunity to recruit leads into prospects, into clients, into closings. And it works. So it's still a matter of making the calls and getting in front of people, and we'll certainly be talking a lot more about that. Still in the recruiting retention section of the program here, I want to talk about a question Gina Saba in Denver asked, and that was, what, if anything, have you been doing recently, or how has it changed at all with agent retention?
I think it's the biggest focus for me at my stage of growth. What I can't allow to have happen is the people that we've spent time cultivating and training and them getting a skill set, and then that skill set leaving because we don't provide the next thing they need to grow. So I'm not sure how into detail you want me to go into the concept of building teams and all the rest of that, but that would be my answer is I got to have a solution beyond leads from the beginning. From the very beginning, we're pitching them on the idea of this is a small business incubator where we focus on real estate. Because we got a lot of people in here with some good best practices. Or if you want to do door knocking, we've got people that are making money from it. I got a couple of people right now that are making FSBO expired calls. You can go over here. We can learn about that. If you want to learn how to market to internet buyers as a requirement coming in the door, we can teach you that. If you want to add an assistant to your team, I've got somebody that's doing that that's got a place. We've got a plan. We've got something for the next step. And when you're sitting at 0 and you're thinking about doing whatever you're going to do, let's say it's 20 deals or 30 deals a year is a very common answer for people that are starting at a 0. I mean, an experienced agent has nothing going on. They have an idea in their mind that all they need is enough people to talk to and they'd get their 20 or 30. And that's real. I think that's true. I think that's what lead advertised business models attract people for. If you just give me enough good ones, I'll get enough people in the car. But my ability to provide them, quote, good ones from the leads is going to be limited. It takes a long time to get a database converting at a place where people are calling you, which is what they're really describing they want, is somebody that is so willing and able to do business that they just have to do the real estate, not the cultivating the relationship. And that cultivation of relationship is the job. That prospecting for our leads, prospecting their past clients, prospecting their COI, all the stuff we already know. But fitting all that into...
stuff they'd be doing at any other real estate company if they weren't with us.
That's true.
Whether it's calling... And that's where I feel like, just jumping in here with my opinion for a moment, but that's where I feel like sometimes because of the focus on the leads and the system and what our traditional, what's been our specific business model is sometimes we lose sight of how many leads can we turn into referrals and repeat clients, and not losing your future business, the whole prospect for life conversation. But go on. I just want to jump in there and add that I do feel like that's one place where we don't talk about it enough, at least, and it obviously needs to be a focus. One thing I want to add though is where we were too rigid as an organization, and that we're not now, is the idea that as someone's business evolves, we need to evolve with them in terms of whether it's commission splits. That's certainly a specific part. And every manager out there, we've probably said, I don't know how many times, if someone deserves it, we're willing to be flexible on that in a way that several years ago we weren't. And that's part of the conversation. But it's everything going back to what we talked about earlier about the value proposition above and beyond leads. It's really how you help them grow their business. That's something organizationally we have more to learn on. It's not been our expertise, but we have people like you, we have people in Indy like Ryan, Brandon, of course, and Charlotte. Our 3 most mature markets where we're all facing this, where we have higher producing agents. We want to retain these people, and we just have to be able to help them grow their business one way or the other. Maybe it's just a financial consideration as it relates to splits, or maybe it's additional value we provide. The other day when we were prepping for this call, you talked about your biggest, what takes up a lot of your time during the day is just helping solve the problems that your agents are having as it relates to a transactional concern. Could you speak on that if you could?
I would say that service that is provided from let me frame this thought. The value proposition that we're trying to shoot for here from all of us to the agent is, number one, we're going to help them convert internet leads. We're going to teach them how to do that as a skill set. Number 2, we are going to kill ourselves helping them get their deals closed. We're going to do things that they would never do alone. They would never have called the broker and asked for Brokers do not call other brokers. Maybe that's a Vegas thing. Of course it happens from time to time. But everyone's a king in their own castle, like Huey Long country, like chicken in every pot. And everybody thinks they know all the rules when they're brokers. So when they talk to each other, sometimes there's a lot of conflict because they're not agreeing. And that tends to resonate. When an agent has a problem here, we adopt it. And what's cool is, when I say adopt it, I mean management takes it on. When they don't know how to fill out that contract, we all help. But that's when they're asking. Like, we're getting involved and asking if they've done this before. When they say they'll figure it out, and saying, nope, let's sit down and do it. Or when they got a problem with another broker or another agent, not just call us up and ask for advice in the 11th hour, but if you're sitting at a table, you're going to hear 3 or 4 people discussing how they're handling it and how they handled it in the past, and you're going to pick up from it. So I think our value prop is that you're going to have a place where people are incubating the exact kind of business you are, and you're going to hear and see their problems before they happen. As it relates to, our ability to service the agent and any way walk of life for the experience. Once people get to that place where they're doing 20 deals a year, that's when they start having conversations about how they're going to go to 40. Going from 20 to 40 is a big jump, and it always requires either becoming more efficient, getting the telephone to call into you rather than you have to make that call out, or a lot more work, right? Once they hit 40, though, and this is a threshold, it's been going on here for years, some people top out because when they're at 40, some people can do 60 or 80 on their own. Now, most people 40 as a buyer's agent, when they're doing primarily buy sides, they get topped out because of the stuff that's involved. They're not efficient at doing all the jobs of back office, closing deal, and prospecting, and meeting new clients. So something starts to take a back seat. Ironically, the thing that usually doesn't take a back seat is the stuff that pays the worst. So one of the things that we were competing against when we have these agents that are good and they're thinking about going to another office, all those other offices offer transaction coordination. So we came up with a way to create transaction coordination in the office where we didn't have to pay a salary. And that's big because now when people walk in and they're looking at my model, I'm not at a disadvantage to the large companies, and my price for that transaction coordination is sometimes half of what they're paying for it at the other market. So that's a competitive advantage that's drawn from trying to keep my good people in. Next will be, how do you hire an assistant? Because if you're productive, you're doing 40 deals a year and wondering how you're going to get to 80, you're going to have to give some stuff away, or you're going to have to get really efficient. Most people don't do well at efficiency in the short term, so takes time to build new habits. An easy way to do is just buy somebody that will do that kind of work. If you can afford to pay, a person $10 an hour for 30 hours a week, 20 hours a week, you can take a whole lot off your plate that would allow you to actually have time to prospect your past clients. It's happening right now. I've got one of my agents, Julia, this year has added like 12 transactions to her bottom line because she's actually doing all that stuff that we've been talking about for years. She's going out in the mornings and dropping off bagels or Starbucks to meet past clients and hand them a CMA. I mean, it's an easy meet. She's meeting people to tell them they're up money in their house. Everybody made money in the last 2 years. So, but the fact is, if you don't have the carved time or the discipline to do that, one of the ways an experienced agent that's building that downline, that past client list of people they can market to directly, one of the ways that you free them up with time is you start teaching them how to grow a team, build an assistant, a buyer's agent, and multiple agents. And anyway, how do I go out and get the experienced agent? My answer in my mind, and it's not, this is why I'm not sure if this is a good answer for everybody, but for me, I want the experienced agent. Matter of fact, I want to start with people that are slow and teach them, but once I have something they don't, I can go to them. They don't need my leads. The experienced agent's got plenty of business coming in. So me calling them up and telling them to come over and meet with me is not wrong. It's awesome. It introduces me as a concept. But for me to compete against what they're getting offered, I'd have to dramatically increase the commission split that I would offer, even as far as 100%. And I'd have to give them stuff oftentimes, like office space, which I could do, or free for transaction coordination or a free assistant, help them in marketing in some way. I think it's totally possible. But if I have something they don't have, not a team we can go work on, but a tool that'll help them build their team, I'll be able to market to them in a way I can't now. So as soon as I have that working in my office and they can come in, touch it, feel it, and interact with it, I don't have to promise them that I'm going to do it for them. I can just show them what I did. And that's where the tool...
I was just going to say team building is something that you're dealing with in Vegas, we're dealing with in Indy, again, Brand's dealing with in Charlotte, and it's something that we're gaining experience on, and it's certainly going to be one of the routes at which we retain. Anything else you want to add on that?
Only reemphasize TC is easy to do. It can be done. If you don't have a transaction coordinator for your best agents, they're doing $10 an hour work instead of calling. And this is not, anytime you're ready, we can do a meeting on it and tell everybody how we got people who work for $200 an hour and train them, because Brett has done a fantastic job with all the people that we brought in on it. And what we found is
$200 a transaction, you mean?
$200 a transaction.
Right.
Yep, that's it. And our competitors are charging $3.95 for that, and they're getting less service because they're just hiring some person and trying to collect the money themselves. We're not trying to take a profit on it. We're literally just trying to get the agents the help they need. Because if I don't get that $10 an hour work away from a person that's doing 40, they cannot go to 60 and 80, not without giving up their life at home, not without quitting everything. And that's when they start thinking about leaving, because they can see they can do more, and it's a little step. So anyway, not to beat a dead horse, that's one thing. That I can put my hands on and say, we're doing that and it's working. The rest is theory.
And there's a number of markets where we do have TC work happening, transaction coordination. So if you aren't one of those, let us know. We'll talk to you about that. Something you touched on a little while ago that I wanted to get into more was some specific marketing that you might be doing in Las Vegas that we're not doing elsewhere. Byron West in Atlanta asked, what kind of local strategies are you doing? And you mentioned some FSBO calling, stuff like that, but you also mentioned door knocking. And I don't think we're doing door knocking anywhere but in Las Vegas, and I don't think we ever have, but you've had some interesting success with that. Tell me about that.
Well, unfortunately, we've all heard the story before, because everybody's worked in real estate long enough to hear a story about what happens in summer when you list a house and go knock on the doors around it. So, what can I say? It works. It really works. But I think it goes back to the question about what our value proposition is. So here's something that's really cool about that. See, Arush did a meeting for us this last week at our Thursday night meeting. She did a half hour with us and showed us all the marketing tools. I had 18 people sitting in that room. I have almost 65, 67 on the roster. I had very few people from my total roster that were in that meeting. Yet those people who were sitting there learned about all the stuff that we can do for free inside our office using our copier to get ready for any kind of marketing that we're about to do. And it's cool stuff. It's high quality stuff.
Make sure you explain who Arush and how that came to be. Arush in Indianapolis. Indianapolis and corporate marketing. Chip had approached her about at one of Chip's Thursday night call nights, doing a webinar presentation and going over the options that we can help you here with in Indy. Arush did this, like you said, you got 18 or so people there. It made a big impact, but I just want to make sure people understood where you were going with that.
Oh, and I know if you haven't looked at this stuff, it's better than what the title company is trying to give you to cross brand with. It's better. It's just beautiful. And all you got to do is send them some pictures, and the next thing you know, you're looking at a threefold that's got really good comps on it and your brand and message alone. And so when you have that stuff, what are you going to do with it? Well, you could pay for postage and do a mailer around. You could try to get a list and try to call. Or you got some background noise there, Steve.
Someone needs to mute. I don't know what the background noise is, but I'm not sure. It looks like everybody's muted on my end. But anyway, go on. And yeah, go on.
So anyway, just door knocking. It was as simple as having some new agents right at the beginning of summer in May. No one's ever done it. I've done it before. I did it when I worked at Mike Ferry with Keller Williams offices, and it works. It's easy. You go out and there's not a fancy script. We just listed the house down the street.
You personally went out there and did this with how many people?
The first time with 5, the second time with 6. The last weekend when we went out there with Nick and Tommy and those guys, there were only 4 of us. But here's what's cool about it. It isn't all the business we get from it. It's that it's a tangible example of my value proposition. I'm not just saying you should do this stuff, because it takes someone saying, I'll go with you sometimes to get people to do it, because they haven't done it, and they're, whatever that lack of feeling. This is the 3rd weekend. This will be the 3rd weekend in a row Tommy goes and knocks the same neighborhood in a different place. Why? Because he keeps getting leads from it. Now, last time, 2 times he did it by himself and then with another person. Now we got 4 people. Next week he'll have more, because it works. And when the agents are sitting around saying, I don't have a deal today, I don't have an appointment, and someone says, come over here with me and knock, because there's somebody in the neighborhood it's summer and nobody's knocking, you pick up deals. Ironically, for the new agents, 2 of the new agents have sold the listing that we went out to advertise within a week to a person they met that day, and it was selling it in the neighborhood to another family member. It's old school, and it's not marketing to internet buyers, but I'll be doggone if it doesn't work. It just sucks being out in the heat.
Well, what would you say to the agent or even possibly the manager that says, door knocking? Well, this is exactly why I came to EasyStreet or Highgarden.
Yeah.
What the hell?
Well, I did a bad job of setting the expectations for what you're going to need to build 100 clients. We're shooting at this brand called 100 Past Clients. I'm pitching people when they're coming in the door at, the real question that we're solving is, how can I get to 100 past clients the fastest? Because with 100 past clients, I don't necessarily need a lead source. If I do a good job of marketing to 100 past clients, I stay in touch with them, I'm in touch with them 4 times a year, I can yield 20 deals from that easy. I can yield 20 if I really I'm very vigilant in my garden. Because if you don't believe me, I sign up for any one of the national coaching systems, and that's what they are all based on. It is not based on a bunch of fancy rah-rah. It's based on, how do you get past clients, because those are the easy ones. And it's the thing that keeps people from burning out of real estate. We got a density in this city of 1 in 200 people as a real estate agent, but the turnover is incredible. Just incredible, because people are kind of messing around with it. By the way, that's not even close to the highest density. I looked this up. Arizona has the highest density of real estate agents in the country. So if we've got an Arizona manager on a call, it's even worse there. Florida is number 3 on the list. We're 4, but Florida was, I think, 175. 1 in 175 people is a realtor. So there's all these people that are realtors, which oftentimes, in my opinion, at least here, means there's a lot of bad realtors. And so what are we doing that's going to create a business model where they can get to 100 past clients the fastest? Means, sure, we're going to be working on internet leads, because that is readily available. And if you don't have things to do today, we have some people to call. But is that the only thing you're going to do? Well, not once you take a listing, it isn't. Because if you take a listing, you just inherited a really valuable tool for getting business. And we would be neglect if we did not do what we need to do to try to get everything we can out of the advantage of putting a flag in a neighborhood and saying, we're experts. We literally know more about getting done than anybody else around here, because we just did it. And that's the conversation. It's not cocksure, it's easy. We just listed one down here, sold for this price. Just checking in to see when you guys are thinking about moving. Oh, you're not? Okay, got it. Here, take our flyer. If you know any people you want to bring to the neighborhood, we'd love to have them. And everybody can say that. And if they actually say something different than we're not moving, then you end up having a real estate conversation, which oftentimes you're cutting internet leads weeks, months, sometimes years to actually have a face-to-face conversation. The value of having someone in neighborhood that knows your product and can identify that you're good at your job without ever having met you is a huge value prop. And as much as everybody knows about it, those offices I just mentioned, they are not knocking on those doors. It is not happening.
Right.
Because it's so old school. It's almost like how you hear people say, I went back to mailing because now that nobody mails, I'm getting a higher answer rate than I did 5 years ago. I believe it, because everybody emails or texts to this point. Putting stamps on stuff is not what they're training to do in real estate offices, and it can work. So the point is, we're trying to train them teach them how to fish rather than hand them a fish, if that makes sense.
It absolutely makes sense. I want everyone to know, too, I've had a couple of you text in questions or on the chat box. That's great. I can see them, and I'll try to get to those if you have a question that you really want to ask, so please feel free to do that. Scott Myers in Denver wanted to, if you could expand on what exactly a Rouge provided for you, and just because a lot of people just may be in the dark, and hey, that's shame on us for not making sure you know exactly what Danielle and a Rouge can provide you from a corporate marketing perspective. But could you give us just 30 seconds on what she did provide for you?
I'll tell you what a couple of the agents have been going goo-goo over. They're ordering them and they're doing them with any of their – it's so easy. It's just all old school stuff. Just so like when the house closed, there's a postcard that she does. You can put any picture, any stuff, or use the stock, and it's just congratulations on closing. It's a quick note. Everybody seems to be in love. Don't ask me why. Agents think it's so cool. I don't care. If anything they're doing that reaches out and touches that person is a positive event that can be called back. They can make a phone call behind. And my problem is getting agents to do something proactive to talk to people they already sold a house to. Crazy as that sounds, it is 10 times harder to get someone to call a person that they have done great business with that loves them than it is to call a brand new person out of their database that's a non-contacted lead. It's insane.
Right.
And it's because we don't have a hot list that points people and says, I'm not advocating we do have that hot list, by the way. I just meant our IMS is not saying, darn it, you did not make this call to your referral today. Because if I had people that would buy into that system, I think they would reject it. It's just people want the normal real estate set that we had grown in the past. And by we, I meant, let me back up and say that I had grown in the past, was agents that did not ever want to talk to someone they did business again unless they were calling them with good news. If they call me up and say, good news, I got a buyer for you, that's perfect. But the idea that I'd have to call these people and have a relationship with them past sale, was just anathema. No, can't be done. Don't ever want to talk to them again. They'd rather go out and start speed dating with brand new people who have no clue, they have no clue and do not know how good they are, than call somebody up they had an amazing relationship with. So, as simple as it is to say, it's a battle. And that is, by the way, the power of that table. It is not the table. It's that when you got people sitting there that are getting success from doing this stuff, that's when people start to reevaluate. They hear a peer that they consider to be near their level of skill that's getting money in an easy way, and they go, wait a minute, how'd you do that? You're not going to, okay, exactly how long did you go out and knock on all these doors? I mean, I've gotten people that, the crazy thing is, I've gotten a very 50-50 split of experienced agents that have been with me for more than 2 years and brand new people that'll go out and do that door knocking. Because the experienced people will say, man, if these young people are doing it and it's working, maybe I should try it. And the new people just do it because we told them to. So, but if I'm starting off,
one thing I want to jump in. Go ahead. I was just going to say one thing I do want to say is that in the IMS on closed clients, it does automatically put in a touch for every 3 months. You have to remove that. So that is something that's part of 2.0. And, hopefully people are calling not only their hot list, but their reminder lists. But they may or may not be, let's be honest.
I would say it's the single most valuable thing that they have in the real estate business. It's more about, I made this argument last night with 2 agents who were sitting in here because they were arguing about at what point it was worth it to take a listing, at what commission level. We try to stay, we always say the minimum you can do is a 1%er because we've got to make some money out of the transaction, so do you. I don't advocate doing this, but as a hypothetical thought experiment, I asked them what was more valuable, the first commission on a 3% listing or the referral downline contact and experience them being branded as a person that's good at this with a person that sold a house. And when we wrote down the number of referrals they could get from it in the next 3 years, the money was ridiculous. I mean, you get way more money out of people knowing they're good at real estate than you do selling them real estate.
Well, exactly. It's like you said, teaching them how to fish instead of giving them a fish.
We've done a shitty job. We've done a poor job of it for a lot of years. I had a lot of people that walked out of here, and I'd done anything I was supposed to be doing, gotten in their face, if I'd have known they weren't making calls like I do today, we know they are not working. And if you're not working, well, we can't help. But if I see you in there really working, well, I got some work to do, like, how do I help? And maybe you're just not going to ever be good on the phone. Maybe we got to find a different way, but we're trying.
Well, the technology gods are against us here because the power just went out. Luckily, my whole computer and phone are on backup power right now, so hopefully we didn't lose everybody out there. But Scotty, give us more power. So Nakia in San Diego asked, something we're all dealing with in every market we're dealing with this, and that's the multiple offer situation and how often our agents are involved in bidding wars, how often they're losing. And her fantastic question was, what are you doing to help maintain the agent's morale if and when you have a particular agent or a whole group of them that just seem to be on the losing end of this time after time?
This was sent. You sent the email to me with the questions. This is the one I spent the most time thinking about for this call. Before I handle the question of morale, let me handle it up front. I have no secrets. How do you handle a friend who's having a really bad day? What do you do? You can console them, or you can point them at examples and other stories of people that have survived their tragedy. Because giving them constructive criticism at a moment when they're low is very, very dangerous. Usually they show up in the 11th hour with any problem, and they're freaking out because they're about to lose money or things aren't working. They're about to give up. And at that moment, I've got tons of great advice. So does Brett, so does Justin, so do any of the experienced agents around. But a lot of times, that's the absolute worst time to give them advice because they can't hear it. They're not asking for what they should do next time. That's like telling me what to do next time I'm on fire when I showed up burning. So, a lot of times it's tell them they're great at it. Ask what they're doing. If you do hear something, Brett had a really good observation with one of our experienced agents last week. 2 weeks ago, she called me up and read me the riot act for 30 minutes, accused me, very productive agent, and was so freaked out about the lack of business that was coming in. And she was accusing me of having changed the way we do leads or how the leads were given to her. Now, of course, she was just freaking out. But we let her freak out, told her how great she was, told her if she's doing the things she said she is, that there's room for improvement. She hadn't had a deal in a month and a half and was sure that this system wasn't working. She was vowing to inspire leads. And so I got a phone with her, and I went over to talk to Brett, and he pulled up the numbers, and he's like, I'm looking at this, and it doesn't look like she's making night calls. I had talked to her and said, are you making night calls? She said, of course, calling blah, 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 blah. Her memory was she's been hammering the phone at night. The system shows she is not calling at night. She's stopping her calls every day at about 4 o'clock. So Brett sends an email. She ends up making a phone call and email back, of course, defending herself. But lo and behold, 3 days later, from a night call that she made, she gets a now buyer that ends up purchasing. And all is better with the world. Of course, the leads were great now. But the leads didn't change. The leads never, ever, ever change. You get lucky sometimes. That's awesome. Serendipity is one of the great events in life. But if you have a business plan, at the top of it, it says, how are you going to acquire business? And it says serendipity. You are not in this industry in a year because there's just not a lot of serendipity coming down. What there is I call people at night because there's a 3 times higher chance of me catching them when they're not at work. When they are, then you get to have the conversation that she had. And we all know it. And the toughest part is getting people to believe that that's true. So she didn't believe us that day. We've all been there where we're giving the advice. We're telling them, hey, look, if you actually did this, I wasn't able to get her to hear me. Brett's email caused a little bit of a little defensive reaction from her, but it incited action. The event occurred because she called us to complain. And most people don't make that call. They just sit out there saying, this stuff's not working, and make up their own mind why. So, this is extremely hard stuff for all of us. For the manager trying to motivate, give them this great information we have about how they can make more, and the agent saying, that's all great, but I'm working on it. I mean, my life's falling apart right now because these 2 commissions that I'm working on, neither of the appraisal just came in, and they have no money to make up the difference. So talk to me about my database when I'm not on fire. You know, and you can't have a meeting on that. You can, when they come in and they're picking up the closing check for those 2 deals, you can talk then. You can talk then, though. And we all know it. It's just a matter of coming up with a way to get more of them coming in to talk to us.
Mark Gouen in Myrtle Beach wanted to know, and this is a tough one for everyone out there, and once again, you're in a more mature market with support and size that a lot of the managers don't have, but the question still remains, and for the managers that are one-man shops more like, or just with limited support relative to the size of your market, this can change. But his question was, you know, he's getting up and running in Myrtle Beach. He's been with us for a few months, and he's, like so many of us, is struggling to get control of his daily schedule and to, you know, how can he have the structure, discipline? What kind of time blocking are you using? What tools and systems are you using so that the tail isn't wagging the dog and you have proactive control of your schedule?
You need to have a conversation with Ryan Herget or Brandon, who is working from a much more structured place. I am the opposite of what you're describing. The tail is wagging my dog. No question about it. We're reacting to what's coming in the door. The only planned events we have are interviews, specific one-on-ones with somebody who's at a real critical place or has requested our time. Like, if they say, I need help, obviously we all say, good, I'm going to help you. We have an advantage of having more time to give than the brokers out there that are producing. You know, we really do. We have a big advantage. So I better be able to make some time for them, and that's 7 days a week. I'm plopped in the middle of that desk or that table 7 days a week. I have time here because I don't know when they're going to show up. And some people work during the day and show up at night. And some people work in the middle of the day and show up either early or late. And the bulk of people show up when they're doing business, and that's when you got the chance to make a difference. So, you know, that I don't think it's a fair answer for how you build a daily schedule, because I don't think I have one except I'm showing up. And I have these appointments in the middle of the day that are blocked out, but the rest of the time it's finding somebody to help. Waiting for them to come and say, hey, I need some help, does not work. It doesn't work. And they're calling them up and saying, hey, I want to talk to you about your database, doesn't either. But what does work is calling them up and saying, how's it going? Checking in. Tell me your story. I learn way more from them than they learn from me, because I'm trying to pick up what they're struggling with so I can build a composite to explain to the next person what that's going on. We know our numbers. We know there are 5,104 single-family residences available in the market. We teach them that. They don't have time to look that number up this morning. We do. It's on our lips, and it starts every training. Before we get started, you know how many houses are, what happened in the last week? If they're looking in a specific part of town, one of our parts of town is called Henderson. Henderson's almost always 20% of the total market. So I don't need to look at the Henderson number. All I need to know is there's 5,104. Multiply that by 2. There's around 1,000, 1,200 or 1,100 homes for sale in Henderson. Why? Because it's always about 20%. They don't have time to do that simple math, go in the MLS and figure that stuff out, but we do. We do, and that's the brand. Like,
right.
The business model is, we're going to do the analysis. We're going to tell you what's going up and down. We're going to tell you what to look for. We're going to tell you what's in the contract. And you're going to stop in and talk to us because we got good stuff. It's not just pick up your check. It's they'll stop and say, okay, tell me what's going on. Or even better, neither one of those, they sit and talk to the other agents. And they hear all the same, everybody's operating from the same pool of information. And if they walk in thinking that it's hard to find a house, this is my favorite part, circle back to that table, is this question. Someone will say, this client is $175,000 and wants blank in a certain part of town, and it's impossible to find. You say that in a group of realtors, you better be right. Because there's one thing realtors know, it's that if they have searched that area, they believe that they know a better price. They will immediately say, no, there's some stuff over there at 145. Did you look at blankety blank? I know these others sold last year They were like 130. They're probably about 150 now. You should look at those. That's not something Brett or Justin has that. That's not something I have, because I have not been in their car taking clients out and physically seeing $155,000 houses this week. But they all have. So when you get those people in that room, problems like that, I'm telling you, we have sold a lot of houses in the last year by someone just telling someone else what they had learned. And that's Powerhouse. That is a brand. One that I wish I could have told you by putting the table in I was going to get. I thought we were just going to get some training. I was wrong. It put some food in there, and people know they can come sit in a place and get all their answers. It becomes the reason they work for us. And I've had the estimate I would give is, I told you yesterday 9, I was lying. I think if we stopped giving leads, we'd have a very good shot at keeping 8 of our 10 top producers, because they're not taking internet leads anymore. They're barely doing it. They're using us for what we're doing to help them grow their business. And, that's what, at the end of the day, everybody wants is good advice. So we're trying.
If anyone has any questions, we're getting close to wrapping this up, everybody, and I really appreciate your patience and time here with us. Well,
Steve,
we're not wrapping
Steve,
it up
I wanted
yet.
to circle back.
Yeah.
Steve, I want to circle back to something.
Go ahead.
The Kia's question. When the Kia asked the question, the first one was about what do you do to console people in a market where it's $20,000 to $30,000 above. I do have. This is the one thing I'm positive I have good advice about. Bad news, my good advice doesn't work all the time, but it's what works here. And we've been through that market 3 times. We're in another now. $200,000 house, and it's well priced with a pool in the back. It's somewhere in the 200,000s. It's selling for at least 10% above market. There were going to be at least 15 offers on that property. So in that environment, what's crazy is there's only 3 things that I've seen over time that genuinely work. The first one's the one we already knew before we asked the question, which is blunt force. I have an agent just walked in yesterday that's frustrated. They're writing their 35th offer in 2 weeks. 35 offers, and they still have not got a property accepted. But if you are a FHA buyer and have no cash and can't handle going above list price, that's you got to either move down in price or continually face the nightmare. Even if you move down in price, if you have no cash and you can't come above, you're stuck. So that you just got to wait until you can get a story told. But that same buyer class given to another agent does get accepted with more regularity. No 35 offers. I got a couple agents who get that stuff done, and they are old school. They are relentless. So the second way you get that deal accepted is you do whatever it takes to, number one, befriend the seller's agent. I'm talking like when you close a low-price deal with a listing agent that's got a bunch of listings, send flowers. No one has ever done this to them. I'm telling you, they just don't care. It's like business. This is one of my agents. She sends flowers. And let me tell you, when she's putting in her next offer and it's 5,000 below, she gets the call back, and they say things like, listen, we'd love to take your deal, but it's 5,000 below. Getting a listing agent to actually call you is a miracle in a market like this. So if you're really in that spot, whatever they got to do to work the seller's agent, but that other one, the one that's really clever, is getting the buyers to go and meet the sellers. They will pick out the properties to show their client that are owner-occupied. That way they know that at 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock at night, if the buyer walks up, knocks on the door, and says, hey, listen, didn't mean to be rude, but we love your house. We're about to put an offer in. We just wanted to compliment you and say you did a great job of doing this or this with it, how long you owed it. And they have any kind of conversation, your odds of acceptance soar. If in that conversation they have a conversation, they end up talking about commonality, they're from the same place, know the same people. And most important, if they are veterans, go find someone who's got a house listed that's a veteran. They'll take your VA over cash and above because they're going to help a veteran. And this happens with more regularity based on the agent than it does on the lead, because some people will be relentless. They will do everything. If your line, your drawing in the sand is, I need a way to submit offers and be completely on price, but get stuff accepted that's below other people's offers, you're losing. That's it.
If anyone else has any questions, type them in now. We're going to wrap it up here shortly. Chip, one last question. This is off the cuff, so I know I've asked you this before, not the other day either. If you were to jump in a time machine and see your 10-year former self, what advice would you give?
I would have everything. The thing I said about leads is the biggest one. I cannot build my brand on leads. It's a loser. I lose that argument. Eventually, the leads either become invaluable or become no value to them because they have too much referral business, too hard for them because they don't like starting 9 months out to make a relationship to sell a house, or they get burnt out because they've built their business around this and they have a bad stretch. And I've lost 3 good agents in the last 4 years for no other reason than they were so reliant on what was going to happen in the month of November or January or February based on the number of people that said they were going to come in and buy or the number of people that they were working with, and then none of it came in. They had no money, and they were stuck going and looking for other work or saying to themselves, I need to go find another place because this isn't working anymore. And that's tough. Even with all our best efforts, sometimes people fail, no doubt. But I don't want to have the conversation be the reason why it didn't work out is because I didn't get any good leads. That sounds like something that either they absolutely rejected and did nothing we said, or we didn't do our job well.
Gang, we're going to wrap it up here. I really appreciate everyone being on the call today this month. Chip, thank you so much for putting in the time and the effort to help all of us across the country here. Much appreciated. We will do this again. We're planning on doing this every month. I'm sure there's places where we can improve on this, or I can improve specifically, and I'll be asking for your feedback. So we're going to wrap it up. Thanks, everybody, for joining, and we'll see you next time. Thanks, Chip.
Thanks.